Hacktivism. What is hacktivism? When you think of possible meanings of this word, what comes to mind? Hacktivism is a literal conjoining of two pre-existing words, the word hack, as in computer hacking, and activism, which is, according to Merriam-Webster, a doctrine or practice that emphasizes direct, vigorous action, especially in support of or opposition to one side of a controversial issue. So, hacktivism then, by definition, means to take action in support of or opposition to one side of a controversial issue by means of hacking into computer systems. Computer hacking has long been synonymous with illegal activities on computers, mostly having to do with gaining unauthorized access to computer systems. It's even gaining some notoriety in popular culture, for example in the USA Network drama/thriller Mr. Robot. The real question is, can computer hacking be used for good? Well, that's the basic idea behind hacktivism. Computer hackers using their computer hacking skills to draw attention to issues in the world and to make real, tangible changes to society. Problems only come into play when you consider that they are still in fact breaking the law in most cases, and they are going about their activities according only to their own moral compasses. This means that they are taking actions based only on what they think is right, rather than what society thinks at large. If they happen to agree with society, then what they do can arguably be viewed as a morally good thing, much like the story of Robin Hood stealing from the rich to give to the poor. But if they disagree, then their actions may denigrate them to be the criminals that the law has almost always painted them to be. There are a lot of hackers and hacker groups in the world, and many of them hack computer systems purely for personal gain. Hacktivists set themselves apart within the hacker community, however, by fighting what they consider to be moral injustices in the world. Some famous hackers and hacker groups known to participate in hacktivism include Julian Assange, the Hong Kong Blondes, Legions of the Underground, Telecomics, Lulsec, Aaron Swartz, New World Hackers, and finally, Anonymous. For the purposes of saving time on this project, I'm going to be focusing on one individual hacktivist, Aaron Swartz, and one hacker group, Anonymous.
What does the First Amendment do in the U.S. just generally, like as a culturally? What do we take for granted that it does for us? And then more specifically, like what do you think it should mean for the internet?
So the First Amendment, right, is this classic guarantee of free speech that however crazy your ideas are, however weird your thoughts are, even if you just want to say something you don't even believe but just think is interesting, that's protected for the most part. Whether you're going after the government, whether you're releasing documents that they have tried to keep secret, whether you're telling a reporter about, malfeasance that's gone on, whether you're just making a really outrageous piece of art. The government can't stop any of that. We have the right as American citizens to have this sort of free and open communication, to share what we think, what we feel, what we've created. And I think that's a huge part of our culture, right? The sort of openness we have, the comfortableness we have with each other. A lot of that traces back to the First Amendment. And on the internet, I think the First Amendment takes on an even more important role. Because if you think about how computers work, they're not like people. They don't understand what it is they're saying, right? They just take a bunch of text from over here and paste it over there. They're just big copying machines. I mean, that's what they do. They copy things from one place to another. And so laws about the content of speech, which traditionally have been prohibited by the First Amendment, they're almost impossible to execute on a computer, right? A computer can't look at this and say, is this offensive? A computer can't look at something and say, does this upset the government? It's not a person. There's just no way for it to know that. And so if you have laws saying that kind of speech is illegal, it makes it impossible for the internet to work, right? Every point along the system, there's something being copied. The little router you have in your house copies it to a thing down the street, copies it to a big building somewhere. Like dozens of copies are made just in the most inconsequential task. And if every time the computer has to stop and say, is this illegal? the internet would fall apart. It would just be impossible to do.
Aaron Swartz wasn't just any typical computer hacker. He had a helping hand in the formation of the internet as we know it today, even working for the World Wide Web Consortium for a time, and was also one of the co-founders of Reddit.com. Aaron Swartz was born on November 8, 1986 in Chicago, Illinois. Aaron was incredibly intelligent, even at an early age, teaching himself how to read at age 3, and creating InfoNetwork, a user-generated encyclopedia which he later likened to an early version of Wikipedia. Aaron would go on to co-author RSS 1.0, later moving to San Francisco to write code for Creative Commons, a public domain watchdog group. Aaron only briefly attended Stanford University, majoring in sociology. But while he was there, he downloaded law review articles from the Westlaw database and used the data to write a paper about the connection between research funders and biased results. Shortly after this, he left academia forever and joined Y Combinator, an incubator for up-and-coming internet talent. It was around this time that Aaron developed Infogami, which, shortly thereafter, merged with Reddit.com, making Swartz a co-founder of the resultant company. By the time Aaron and the other founders sold the company, Reddit was already getting millions of visitors a month. In 2008, Aaron wrote the Guerrilla Open Access Manifesto, which was an argument against information being hoarded and controlled by any particular individual or group. It ends with the demand that information be freely given, freely available, or taken forcibly if need be. A line from the manifesto reads, "We need to take information wherever it is stored, make our copies, and share them with the world." That fall, Aaron decided to take on Pacer, a system that charged users to download court documents. Using an algorithm that he wrote, Aaron downloaded nearly 20 million pages of text from the Pacer database. The FBI began an investigation into Swartz's activities in spring 2009, but the investigation was soon dropped. In late 2010, Aaron used a digital repository called JSTOR to download a large number of academic journal articles through MIT's computer network. Aaron downloaded the documents through a laptop connected to a networking switch in a controlled access wiring closet at MIT. By July 2011, Swartz was facing multiple counts of computer and wire fraud, which were charges that could have resulted in up to a $1 million fine and up to 35 years in a federal prison. Prosecution continued over the course of 2 years. The first year and a half, the government added multiple counts to the original charges, many of them taking advantage of the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act of 1986. Many believe that because of the broad language within the legislation, most of the charges were overreaching and exaggerated beyond a typical level of just and fair, and that this was done in order to further coerce Aaron to pleading guilty. Aaron, however, refused, continuing to assert his innocence. By January 2013, the litigation had taken its toll. Aaron was deeply depressed. He had become fearful of the federal charges and their implications, which left him feeling more and more trapped. And on the night of January 11, 2013, Aaron Swartz was found dead, hanging by his belt in his Crown Heights apartment. In a public statement, his family said, "Aaron's death is not simply a personal tragedy. It is the product of a criminal justice system rife with intimidation and prosecutorial overreach. Decisions made by officials in the Massachusetts U.S. Attorney's Office and at MIT contributed to his death." Since Aaron's death, congressional investigations have been launched into the Justice Department's prosecution of Swartz, and a bill called Aaron's Law has been introduced to amend the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act to rein in such prosecutions in the future. Aaron Swartz's life was the case of a young man wanting to change the world for the better that unfortunately ended in tragedy. Nevertheless, his contribution to the internet and to internet policy will be something that will be felt for decades to come. While Aaron promoted activism to others, wanting other people to fight for what he deemed the right causes, he was for the most part a loner in how he went about his hacktivist activities. Now, imagine for a moment that if he had not acted alone, what if instead of just one person taking action, there was not just a few or a dozen, more hundreds, possibly even thousands of people working towards the same goal? Enter Anonymous. In the beginning, Anonymous was exactly as their namesake implied, anonymous. Most didn't know each other, most never interacted with each other, and although some had their hands in certain illegal activities within cyberspace, most of them were just harmless browsers of the content of the internet. There are many websites on the internet, and many forums in which internet users can interact with each other. One such place is the website known as 4chan.
Anonymous grew out of what's known as 4chan. And essentially this is just a website where people can upload images and you don't actually give your name. It's just sort of anonymous.
When you look at 4chan, you're often surprised because it looks like a site from like 1995 or something. The idea is very simple. You post a comment and you post a picture. And you can post under your name or anonymously. And it's separated into boards about particular topics. So there's a topic on anime, there's a topic on weaponry. There's
like a 4chan board for origami, and you just upload interesting pictures of origami. And then there was a group called the B board, which essentially was for like anything goes.
The first time anybody goes on B, it's kind of an instant revulsion. Because there's never a time that you go on there where you don't see something horrible. That instantly puts off a lot of people.
The idea is post something that can never be unseen. Half of the posts on B are there specifically to make people not want to come back to B.
Have you ever read Lord of the Flies? 4chan, and especially B, is Lord of the Flies. Except some of them aren't 16 anymore, they're just allowed to act 16.
It's what you get when people are allowed to express themselves with absolutely no restrictions whatsoever. It's the kind of sum of human imagination. People can get together and think together without any limits or parameters.
It's the most vile, disgusting, and funny thing on the internet.
In early 2008, a Scientology promotional video was leaked to the public. This video unflatteringly showcased Tom Cruise, a leading member of Scientology, laughing hysterically. In an effort to curb public criticism, Scientology attempted to have the video removed from YouTube. However, Anonymous had other plans.
A video came out of Tom Cruise. It was supposed to be like an internal Scientology video, talking about secrets of Scientology.
Being a Scientologist, when you drive past an accident, it's not like anyone else. As you drive past, you know you have to do something about it because you know you're the only one that can really help.
It talks about you're the only one who can stop, bad things from happening. And so this is kind of widely mocked online.
It circulated like wildfire.
There's nothing part away from me. It's just...
Because people found it humorous and goofy. And the Church of Scientology went into their legal mode and they threatened websites with lawsuits if they didn't pull down the video.
Instantly, the Scientologists post a DMCA, Digital Millennium Copyright Act. And this is a way that if you own content, you can go to video sites, upload sites, and have your content pulled when someone uploads it illegally.
So Scientology is always at odds with the internet, always trying to legally bully people out of them over on the internet. They always did that. And then here they are trying again, but you know what? Anonymous saw that and they said, oh, you guys just around badly. Like, you're trying to censor our internet. You know, like, are you trying to take a joke away from Anonymous? Like, you don't do that.
What these people did, in this case, is Greg Hausch and these other people, was they decided, you know, we can probably harness Anonymous in this case and target Scientology.
A few Anons, a few people on 4chan posted, hey, we should grab that video and post it on a few other sites. And I was one of the people in that thread talking about it. And we got the original source of the video by reaching out to the person behind the accounts and everything. We start posting it. The surprising thing was how fast they were DMCAing them on every site. It looked to us like they must have direct contact with the lawyers and the team who actually pulls videos at all of these sites. Like, it was minutes and these things were falling down. We're like, holy crap, that's messed up.
So what followed was it's this term called the Barbra Streisand effect. And this video, as they're attempting to suppress it, went everywhere. Like, everywhere you look on the internet, you were gonna stumble upon this video.
Actually, Gawker, the site that I work for, was, I think, the first one to put it on the website, and we got in a huge legal battle with Scientology, who wanted us to take it down.
A guy joins the channel, and he says, you should all look at Gawker. So we go over to Gawker, and the strangest thing has happened. This big media company had the video up on their front page and basically had a comment underneath of it that stated very clearly that they were sick of this abuse that was going on. That made us think, what have we gotten ourselves mixed up in here?
Scientology is an interesting target because in some ways it's the perfect inversion of what geeks and hackers value. At so many different levels: science fiction, intellectual property, discourses of freedom, science and technology. It's very proprietary, it's closed. And so in some ways, if you had something like a cultural inversion machine and you stuck geeks and hackers in there, you'd get something that looks a lot like Scientology. So it's quite offensive, and there's a real pleasure in attacking your perfect nemesis.
What really kind of dared us and set us off about Scientology is specifically the treatment of their critics. Anybody who says anything bad about Scientology is automatically some sort of criminal, some sort of crazy person, a drug addict. It's just that kind of mentality, that kind of, like, if anybody says anything bad about you, we're gonna f you over in the worst possible way. It resonated like this feeling of disgust within us. That was a big problem. That was the big problem. The censorship aspect of it. The audacity of this cult, this creepy cult, to go into our territory and tell us that we can't post this? No, them. No, it's not gonna happen.
And people who knew what Anonymous was to begin with were like, oh my God, Anonymous is gonna go to war with Scientology. This should be really interesting. Especially because it's two weird ass groups. I mean, I've been an Anon for a long time. I know Anonymous is really strange. They're weird, and the stuff we like is weird, and it's really not mainstream at all. Now you have Scientology. Also really weird, a lot of crazy goes down. Anybody on the outside who's seeing this is going, let's watch these two fight. Like, both their pants are gonna fall down, they're gonna triple, and it's gonna hurt everybody, and it's gonna be hysterical. And what happened was all these people who were geared up, the infrastructure was built to war with other Anons, said, you know what, everybody's gonna get together and pound the out of Scientology.
And then that's when 4chan kind of reared into action, really reared into action. And they started to troll the Church of Scientology. And this took the form of pranking the Dianetics hotline, ordering pizzas.
Every fax number we get, and we're sharing them all. You know, every number we get, we send black pieces of paper on a loop until we saw their ink. I go to call them on the phone and it's busy. You know, and that's their main Dianetics hotline. Their Dianetics 800 number, you can't get through because Anons have completely clogged it and just probably saying stupid. The whole idea was just you call them just to keep them on the phone. What's an Ilron? How do I Dianetics my face? They were not expecting that, and they couldn't handle it.
About a week later, the hacker group Anonymous formally announced themselves to the world by releasing a video calling for an initiative against Scientology known as Project Chanology. The point of Project Chanology was to disrupt activities for the Church of Scientology as much as humanly possible in an effort to destabilize it.
Hello, leaders of Scientology. We are Anonymous.
When the video came out on January 21st, that was one of the first times that Anonymous, as a culture, started referring to itself as Anonymous as a movement, and declared that it was going to take down and destroy the Church of Scientology. That video probably changed everything.
We are Anonymous. We are Legion. We do not forgive. We do not forget. Expect us.
It basically looked like if a computer was going to tell you that he was going to beat the shit out of you, this is what it would look like.
That one video really galvanized that moment of innovation. That's exactly like with that video, internet activism, as it's known today, was born.
What the video was saying was, it's over. You're not going to be able to follow people back to their house anymore with impunity. You're not going to be able to just issue a cease and desist letter to any reporter who wants to write some about you that you don't like. You know, that's done with. Every time you do that, Anonymous is going to hit you harder.
So we made a video named Call to Arms that said, we're going to the streets. Every major city of the world has a Scientology building.
Be very wary of the 10th of February. Anonymous invites you to join us in an act of solidarity. Anonymous invites you to take up the banner of free speech, of human rights, of family and freedom. Join us in protest outside of Scientology centers worldwide.
And you just see this consensus forming that it's going to happen. So we made the third video, the code of conduct. Don't bring weapons. Dress accordingly. Cover your faces, because they will try and find out who you are and screw with your life.
Rule number 17. Cover your face. This will prevent your identification from videos taken by hostiles.
Scientology has a history of harassing, stalking, and just generally doing horrible things to its critics. So people needed a way to hide their identities. A lot of people had very legitimate fears. They don't want to be followed home. They don't want to be stalked. They don't want to put their families and themselves in danger.
Everyone was going, well, we're going to wear masks. What's the only mask that we all already know or have a joke about? And it's the Guy Fawkes mask. You see the movie V for Vendetta, the ending scene where everyone's wearing the Guy Fawkes mask. That is very reminiscent of what Anonymous thinks Anonymous is. We wanted to represent anonymity in some way when it moved into real life. I think that the Guy Fawkes mask was one of the most natural things to happen. It is the idea that none of us are as cruel as all of us. You have this massive crowd of people who are anonymous that is going to fight against a bigger thing and win.
Even after watching the video, it's like, yeah, this is great, but who's actually gonna do it? Who's gonna step up? Are people actually gonna get out of their house? And I guess we were really affected by the stereotype of that whole community, there being internet nerds, that too afraid to leave their mom's basements. I figured maybe 15 nerds from every city somewhere might show up and wear their masks at a building for a while and leave.
No one thought that they were gonna come out.
This is me on the way there. I haven't slept. I'm very tired.
And I remember going to the park that day, and it's really early in the morning, which I thought was a bad idea. And I'm smoking a cigarette, and I'm looking around like, where is everybody? There's nobody here.
So here I am, sitting in Bryant Park, waiting for the other announcers to show up.
I remember thinking am I gonna be the only one in the park? Am I gonna walk to Scientology with 6 or 7 people, which totally defeats the entire purpose of this, because now they could single me out, Then I get up and I start walking around, and I see there's a lot of green balloons over there for some reason. On the other side of the park, there was 200 people. There was Guy Fawkes masks everywhere, and I'm like, holy, this is huge.
There's a lot of us. That's pretty good. I had no idea how many Anons there were until we started moving.
And it just got bigger. I remember walking through Times Square, and everybody in Times Square was an Anon. This is 1,000 person per minute foot traffic area. And everywhere I'm looking, I'm seeing and non-symbols. It was wild. It was really wild.
So we start getting numbers in. And Sydney, we're thinking that it's going to be 50 people. And before 10 a.m., before even time, there's already 50 people there. And there's still streams of people walking down the streets. A couple hours into it, because I didn't go to bed until 1 in the morning, you're looking at Sydney as, wow, there's 250 people in Sydney. The cops are estimating higher than that for their reports. What just happened? Adelaide, Perth, and Melbourne happened. And, over 200 at each of them. We nearly broke 1,000 leaving Australia. Now, the next protest was Tel Aviv, which had actually gotten its first Scientology building right before this. There were Palestinians and Israelis at this protest, both holding their flags. And at one point, they actually switched flags and held up each other's flags and whatnot. It was awesome to see. I call our guy in London, Brittanon, and I say, hey, what's going on there? And he's like, did you just get out of bed? I said, yeah, I haven't even turned on the computer. I just figured I'd call you. And he said, we've got 600 people and the cops are really, really mad at me.
All the major cities were having hundreds of people come out. It's massive. Clearwater had like 300 people. I don't think anyone beat out LA. I think LA had over 1,000 people.
The thing that happened was something completely different, and hundreds of people from every city just swarmed the streets. It was kind of overwhelming, a little even scary, but scary in a good way.
Soon, we're at around the 10,000 mark, and we were joking the whole time, over 9,000, one of those memes. It was too surreal. It was not believable.
You go by what name?
We are anonymous.
It was very empowering, especially after people saw the thousands of people showing up. This was it. We owned the world at that point.
Along with massive worldwide protests and prank phone calls, Scientologist website and web server communications were disrupted via distributed denial of service attacks. Along with their own hacker efforts, Anonymous was able to execute these attacks even more effectively by distributing to layman Anonymous members, or Anons as they like to be called, something called Low Orbit Ion Cannon, a program created to allow novice users to run denial of service attacks. The program was designed so that even the most amateur of computer users are able to fully utilize it, and it still exists today. Project Chanology came to be one of the most successful orchestrated hacktivist activities in history. In March of that same year, JavaScript code was maliciously injected into the Epilepsy Foundation of America web forums that caused animations to play that can cause epileptic seizures. This attack was publicly attributed to Anonymous, although there are some who believe that this was done by hackers working for the Church of Scientology in an effort to defame Anonymous. After Mahmoud Ahmadinejad was elected president of Iran, and Iran began cracking down on its citizens by instituting internet censorship, Anonymous stepped in and created web forums under their protection that the citizens of Iran could use freely. Shortly after that, Anonymous announced Project Skynet, which was an initiative to battle internet censorship all across the globe. One operation of Project Skynet was Operation Didgeridoo, which was a DDoS attack on then Australia Prime Minister Kevin Rudd's website. This was carried out due to Prime Minister Rudd's proposal to censor all internet traffic at the ISP level. Anonymous has had its hands in many other activities over the last 7 to 8 years, including the takedown of the Recording Industry Association of America and the Motion Picture Association of America websites. They've attacked and brought down Zimbabwe's and Tunisia's websites via DDoS attacks and have openly attacked various Sony websites, including the PlayStation Network. Whether you agree with Anonymous or not, there is no doubt that they have been one of the most powerful hacker forces ever to traverse the internet. One thing is certain: so long as computer hackers exist, so will hacktivists. Through the hacking of computer systems, protesting and activism has found a relatively new way of being acted out, legal or not. Something to think about computer hacking in general is the notion of where the term actually originates. Believe it or not, hacking didn't always mean specifically taking advantage of and exploiting weaknesses in computer systems. It was only with prolific usage in the age of technology did it come to almost solely be synonymous with illegal activity on computers. It once simply meant to explore, improve, and test the limits of something. This something could be anything. Different gears on a bike or in car engines were, once upon a time, hacks meant to improve them. Life hacks are the simple notion of doing novel things with the materials in your own home to improve the quality of your own life. For example, not sure how to figure out what clothes you never wear in your closet? Simple. Hang all of your clothes in the closet the wrong way, and then put them back in the right way only after you've worn them. Do this for a period of 1 to 2 years, and after that time has elapsed, you can get rid of the clothes that are still facing the wrong way, because you can officially conclude that you don't wear them. There are even political parties, called pirate parties, that exist globally that want to take this mindset of improving things and applying it to the political process. Maybe, just maybe, hacking and making the world a better place were never things meant to be separate. Maybe they were two things always meant to be together.